Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy English Bible Study Podcast. My name is David Gray, and together we're going to read the Bible, and I will make some comments in easy to understand English. Okay, let's get started. Hi again. I hope you're having a happy new year. Okay, let's get started with the Bible reading. The Bible reading is for the second Sunday after Christmas. This is for the second Sunday after Christmas. And the Bible reading is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 40 to 52. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 40 to 52. Okay, verse 40. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Okay, this is about Jesus, right? I'm going to talk more about that verse later, okay? So let's go on to verse 41. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. Okay, so let's talk about that. Passover. What is Passover? Passover is a Jewish festival that remembers how God freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. It's a Jewish festival that remembers how God freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. So they're remembering their freedom. You can read about this in the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 12. Passover is marked by a special meal, prayers, and in the time of the New Testament, people also went back to Jerusalem. Now, of course, there's Jewish people all over the world, so they can't all go to Jerusalem. It's not possible. But that's what they did back in the time of the New Testament. Okay, so they went to Jerusalem for Passover, and Jesus was 12 years old, and it was a custom for a young boy who's 12 years old to talk to the teachers of the law and to ask questions and maybe have to give answers. Maybe the young children had to give answers also. It was part of their, not adulthood as men, but adulthood, spiritual adulthood. Okay? A little bit like today in many churches, there's classes for young people around 12, right? 13, learning about their church teachings. So that was normal. But what was not normal? Well, verse 43, after the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. So you might ask, how could they be unaware of it? They leave Jerusalem, they've been traveling, and they don't know that Jesus is not with them, that Jesus is not with Mary and Joseph. We have to remember that back then they traveled as a very large group. So it was relatives and friends, many, many people all traveling together. So Mary and Joseph thought Jesus is with some of the relatives as they're traveling, but he wasn't. Verse 44, thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. Verse 45, when they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. Okay. Verse 46, after 3 days they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. So it says after 3 days, they traveled away from Jerusalem for 1 day. They came back. They had to come back. So that was 1 day. And then on the 3rd day, they're looking for him. And they find him in the temple courts. So that's normal. Like I said, the young boys asking questions, answers in the temple, that's normal. But the next part is what's not normal. Verse 47, everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. Okay, so Jesus had a very, very, very good understanding of the law and gave great answers. And people were amazed. They were surprised. They thought it was wonderful. Verse 48, when his parents saw him, they were astonished. Again, surprised. Maybe they're thinking, what's going on? What's going on here? Why is this happening? Remember, he was not with them, right? So his mother said to him, son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you. They've been very upset, very anxious, very nervous, looking for Jesus. And she asks that question, but it's not really a question. It's a statement. I told you before in a previous podcast, it's a rhetorical question. It really means, son, why have you treated us like this? It means, why are you treating us so badly, right? So poorly. This is not good. We've been very anxious looking for you. And then Jesus, in verse 49, answers with a question. So, question asked, and then question for answer. Why were you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? So he's answering the question with a question. He says, why were you searching for me? He doesn't mean, why are you looking for me? But you should know where I am. If you lose your car keys, where do you look? You look in the places that you normally find car keys. Maybe you look in your pockets, right? Jesus is saying you don't need to look for me, because you should know I would be in the temple. I would be in my Father's house. Verse 50, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. Okay, they don't understand him. It's very strange to say, in my Father's house. It would be normal if he said, didn't you know I would be in the Father's house, right? But he said, my Father's house. So Jesus has a special relationship with the Father. But they don't quite understand his relationship yet. They don't quite understand who he is. We look in the previous part of this chapter, chapter 2, verse 11. What do the angels say? Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. So they know he's the Messiah. They know they know he's the Messiah, but what kind of Messiah is he? They know he's the Lord. What does that mean? So now they're hearing God is my Father. What does that mean? So I'm sure for them it was difficult to understand. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back now. Verse 50 again. But they did not understand what he was saying to them. 51. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. Let's stop there for a second. So we know Jesus is not a bad boy. They're looking for him. They feel anxious. He wasn't doing anything bad. It says here, he was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Okay, so that's 51. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Remember, we read that before in verse 19. Verse 19. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. At that time, the shepherds had come to visit them when Jesus was a baby and just born. The shepherds came to visit. The angels were, they saw, shepherds saw the angels and talked about the angels. There was so much excitement going on, and Mary stayed calm. C-A-L-M. She stayed calm. And here again, they looked for Jesus. They couldn't find him. And then Jesus says, didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? And he was there with the teachers of the law. All these things were happening, and Mary treasures these things in her heart. Mary seems very special to me because she somehow calmly keeps all these important things, all these wonderful things in her heart. And Luke says this twice, so we're learning about Mary's personality. And then just like verse 40, verse 52, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So we see Jesus is growing up. He's becoming wise, not just smart, he's becoming wise. He knows what's right, he knows what's wrong, he knows what's from God, what's not from God. And I'm sure he makes good decisions because of that. And stature means he's growing physically, his body, he's growing up. And he grew in favor with God and man. God is happy with Jesus. He favors him. He's pleased with Jesus. And the people around them must have thought well of Jesus. They must have respected him as a good young man. Okay, so that's the reading for today. I think there's many things we can think about. One thought I had was, where do you look for Jesus? Where do I look for Jesus? Sometimes we're looking for God. Where do we find him? Now, I know God can be everywhere. So, of course, sometimes people find God in very unusual places. That's true. You can find God in very unusual places. But when we're looking for God, Jesus, where did they find Jesus? They found him at the temple. And we can find Jesus too in the Bible. When we're looking for Jesus, we can read the Bible and find out about him there. And we can also find Jesus, I hope, we can find Jesus in church. And we can find Jesus in good Christian friends. And so when we're looking for Jesus, maybe these are good places to start. That's something I was thinking. Maybe you had different thoughts about today's passage. I don't know. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening today. And again, I hope you're having a good new year. If you would like to leave comments, that would be wonderful. I would be really happy. Okay, so take care and have a good week. We'll see you next time. And God bless you.